Hey everyone, my name is Brianna Wilson. I'm a certified dementia practitioner and the founder of Bambu Care. So today we are doing our Q&A series number 2, where we answer 3 of your questions each week. So thank you for everyone who submitted your question for this week. If you would like to submit a question of your own, you can email us at hello@letsbamboo.com or podcast@whatthedementia.com, depending on where you're finding this, where you're listening to this. You can also message us on any of our social medias if you are watching this there. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Remember, this is super informal and laid back. I have my clipboard right here while I'll be reading out the questions and giving you my answers. Okay, so question number 1 is, I don't get why they have no concept of time. I got my mom a calendar and mark off each day, and she still doesn't get that we aren't doing something today when it's marked a week away on the calendar. So let me first say that the concept of time is very complex. When you think about it, even we had to learn how to tell time. It wasn't just something we were born with. We just didn't, pop out knowing how to tell time. About the age of 5 or 6, we started learning how to tell time. And by the time of 8 or so, for most people, they could tell the time on something digital, an analog clock, understand the 12-hour system and the 24-hour system. But my point is, that's something that we had to learn. And for some people, they really struggle learning the time. So we have to think with dementia, whatever disease process that's going on causing the dementia is slowly killing brain cells. And those connections are important for understanding the concept of time. Without that, understanding time is very difficult. And time is so complex because there's so many variables to it. So for example, sometimes we're able to kind of give a roundabout time because we're referencing something, right? So we're thinking, okay, well, I just did that, now I'm doing this. I'd say about 10 minutes have passed. So I did that about 10 minutes ago. But if your short-term memory is impacted and you're like, what was I doing before this? You have no reference point. So that also makes time confusing, right? But you also have to understand the numbers, what these numbers mean. And then we also have AM and PM. And what does that mean? Because most people forget that AM stands for, antemeridium, and PM stands for postmeridium. Most people don't remember that. We know AM, morning, PM, afternoon, times. So there's a lot that goes into it. So when we talk about something like a calendar, let's just say there's 1 through 31, okay? Well, first we have to know that that calendar is referring to days. Second of all, even if you're marking off the days on the calendar, you have to know what that means, right? So if I'm looking at a calendar and I'm like, what's today? I probably wouldn't know unless I was the one marking them off. Because if I'm looking at something that someone else did, I might be able to assume that they've been keeping up with it. But what if they haven't, right? So then I might think, well, these days have been marked off, 1 through 17, so today must be the 18th. But if they stop marking it off, it might not be the 18th. It could be the 24th. You know what I'm saying? So that's the issue with calendars, is what does that really mean? A lot of us, when we're trying to figure out what the day is, we look to something that spells it out for us. For me, it's my phone. Today is, today I think it's the 21st. But I didn't know that when I woke up this morning. I had to look at my phone to tell me that it's Thursday, May the 21st. And so that is what kind of orients me. But when you have something like dementia, just understanding all of that is very, very difficult. So usually, especially in early stages, that's when it's typically the most beneficial. If you have a clock, a digital clock that tells you 9:30 a.m. Saturday, May 23rd, okay, would be the best type of clock so that the person can see, oh, it's this time on this day of the week, that's better. However, as the dementia progresses, even that can become difficult to understand, let alone remembering to reference that to get the information that you need, okay? And so that's why it's so hard for people living with dementia to understand the concept of time. And as dementia progresses, if you're familiar with the stages, about stage 5, the whole concept of time is usually just very impaired. So 10 minutes could feel like 2 hours. 2 hours could feel like 10 minutes. But a lot of that, there's so many things going on with the brain, but a lot of that has to do with that short-term memory, the episodic memory, all that stuff being impaired. And so there's no reference point. You're relying on faulty systems. Does that make sense? So question number 2 is, I had a lady with Alzheimer's grab my butt one time, and when I spun around, she patted her legs and said, "Sit on my lap." I had no idea what to say. I didn't want to make a big deal about it, so I just told her it was inappropriate. She did the same thing like 3 minutes later. How would you handle that? So let me say this first. So it is a common misconception that people with dementia are naturally more hypersexual, or some even believe that they're more sexually aggressive. But that's not necessarily true. Only about 7 to 25% of people with dementia will display some type of inappropriate sexual behavior. And a lot of that has to do with the damage that's being done to the frontal lobe. Other parts of the brain as well, but to the part of the frontal lobe that controls inhibition, okay? So a lot of us, if we have these impulses to do something, we can regulate ourselves and say, maybe I shouldn't do that. But if that part of your brain is impaired, then what you end up with is disinhibition. So if you have some impulse, you act on it, okay? Another thing that you have to keep in mind, I'm going to scoot back, is that there are visual changes with dementia. So for some people, okay, you're going to start out here, and then you're going to work your way here, okay? And so let's just say here, okay? If someone is standing in front of me, we'll use the example of the butt. If somebody is standing in front of me, I can only see so much, which allows me to focus in on things. So if I'm looking and I see a butt and I'm thinking, oh, that's a nice butt, I might reach out to touch it, grab it, smack it, right? Because I don't have that impulse control to say, oh, it's a nice butt, but maybe I shouldn't touch it, That part is impaired. So I see something I like, I touch it, right? So what can you do? So if it's the first time that it's happened, you can sometimes just ignore the behavior, because sometimes you don't know if the person did it intentionally, if you brushed up against them. And so calling them out on it might not be the best move, okay? But if it happens again, well, you know that you should probably remove the trigger. So for this particular woman, the trigger is your butt. If she can see your butt in her view, she's likely going to act on her impulse to touch it. So being aware of your body position compared to where she is important. Now, I've had it in my case because, again, here, where I've had, patients try to reach out to touch here. Well, if you're paying attention, as their hand is coming towards you, you can gently grab it and, shake it a little bit and keep talking to them, kind of as if you don't even notice that it's happening, right? You just kind of catch them mid-reach, hold their hand, tell them something, redirect or continue whatever you are working with them on as if nothing's happened. So in a lot of cases, just kind of ignoring the behavior and redirecting can be effective. But if the person is doing it, you can tell it's intentional, it's making you feel uncomfortable. Some people will say, well, tell them that it's an inappropriate behavior, that what you're doing is inappropriate. A lot of times it's not effective, not only because of the deficits in short-term memory, but when we think of an inappropriate behavior, that's largely determined by society. What we classify as appropriate and inappropriate is based on what society has taught us that is inappropriate or appropriate. And a lot of that can be lost with dementia because of the disease process. So telling them that it's inappropriate might not really mean anything. So it's usually more effective if you say, please don't do that, I don't like that. Because there's emotion involved, and emotional memory usually lasts a lot longer than just event memory or just telling them something like that. But if you can have them understand how you feel, like, please don't do that, I don't like that, then that might be a little bit more impactful. So first, I would try to just ignore it, especially if it's something like simple, like a tap or like something that you're not completely sure what just happened. You never want to scold them or shame them or you don't want to do that, okay? So I think how you handled it, because you said you just told her it was inappropriate, you didn't engage per se, you didn't shame her or scold her, but the problem is she did it again. So for you, I would recommend first try changing your body position so that she can't see your butt. Keep your butt away from her. That would be my recommendation. And then again, like I said, if ignoring it doesn't work and redirection doesn't work, then telling them, like, please don't do that, I don't like that, is usually pretty effective. But it kind of depends on the person. Sometimes you might have to switch who's working with them. So maybe that person would do better with a female. If it was a male and he was continuing to be sexually provocative despite you telling him that you don't like that, then you might need to put a male person with the male counterpart, okay? So that would be my answer to that question. And then the third question is, when should I start respite care? So respite care, for those of you guys who don't know, is just short-term temporary relief from your duties as caregiver. It's time for you to relax. And so someone else is going to be taking over the care of your partner. Respite care can be for a couple of hours, it can be for a whole day, it can be for several days, okay? It just kind of depends. So respite care can be informal or it can be formal. So informal examples of respite care would be seeing if any friends or family want to volunteer, any organizations that have volunteers that come and sit with people, okay? But then there's actually like organizations that have adult day center programs. Some care facilities have like programs where you can bring your person and they can spend, the day or overnight there, or some have week-long programs. Some do kind of like caregiver resort type things where the caregivers go off and enjoy life and then they take care of their loved one. So when answering the question, when should I start respite care? My advice is to start it before you feel like you just need it. Because it's likely by that time, it's likely not going to be enough. I mean, it's going to be nice to get that break, but it's not going to feel like enough. Whereas if you try to regularly schedule in respite care, that is going to feel so much better because you're going to have much more balance and you're not letting yourself get to that peak where you completely feel overwhelmed and you just can't take another day and you just need a break, because the break is not going to feel like enough. It's just not. So if you can take respite care before you feel like you need it, that is always better. So when things feel like they're going good, take a break. If things feel like they're starting to get, take a break. You want to take a break before you feel like you need it, okay? And Alzheimer's Association, alz.org, they have a lot of resources, especially like if you can find your local chapter, they have a lot of resources on programs that offer that respite care. You might be able to even talk to someone who can get you in contact with someone who can set something up for you if you're not able to depend on people like your family or friends and things like that, okay? So those are the answers to the 3 questions today. Again, if you have any questions that you would like to submit, email us at hello@letsbamboo.com or podcast@whatthedementia.com, or send us a message on any of our social medias. Thank you for joining me on our Q&A series number 2, and until next time, bye guys.